Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, build update 3 for the Shield Crush Jugg. I thought I'd service this one a little more than usual. Defenses are finally online, and basically, I made a few changes to get free Fortify into the build, or easy Fortify, and we are finally on a 4th Vow setup. Now, for anyone who doesn't know about 4th Vow, basically, how 4th Vow works is it converts your armor now applies to your chaos damage taken from hits, which means that the more armor you stack, the more chaos damage will be covered by armor. And funnily enough, the other interaction that this works with is Divine Flesh, which means that 50% of your elemental damage is taken as chaos damage. So hits that incur elemental damage are converted to at 50% chaos damage, and that is then covered by your armor, which means armor now applies for your elemental damage taken. And this also allows you to overcap your chaos resistance to 80% instead of 75%, which means that we basically need to get that up to, max cap, which in this case we do. And basically we mitigate tons of elemental damage, which is where this build can basically tank through Delve now. So I'm progressing through 300 to 400 depth as we speak. But yeah, it's really a really powerful build. Now, my damage is currently deficient in my active build compared to the POB, because I'm still only on a 5-link farming pretty much everything at the end game right now. But once I get my my 6-link fourth Vow, I'll be adding in merely physical damage, and basically we get up to about 12.6 million DPS just on this configuration, and there are many more upgrades we need to make to this build to get it absolutely pumping. I estimate I'm going to get to 43 million DPS by the time I'm done, and we'll be at just shy of 200k effective hit pool. Currently, the effective hit pool, and this is not accounting for that fact that I have a better helm in my actual setup, and the problem with the helm in the setup in my in-game setup is it doesn't exist in PoE POB yet, so I can't map it in here. But I would say I'm currently sitting at an actual of about 180,000 effective hit pool on my configuration, and I reckon we can throttle that up. But the DPS is going to get pretty crazy. So sitting at 12.6 with War Banner active. But anyway, let's talk about the build and get into the meat and potatoes of it. Okay, so as usual, configuration, same as Sol Lunaris, Tukahama, time spent stationary 5. This synergizes with Nature's Patience and the fact that we do more damage along with standing still. Power charges come from Assassin's Mark. Frenzy charges come from the Mastery point on Mark Mastery. You get 10% chance, so it's pretty much up all the time. Endurance charges are basically always generating because it comes from the Unflinching Ascendancy node. Onslaught comes from Tanuahi. Fortified comes from our new Replica Dream Feather, which has a corruption implicit of 10% chance to fortify on hit, and this cost me about 1 div last night. And Adrenaline comes from our Tanuahi. Tanuahi also allows for Leech. Flasks are active, 10 nearby enemies, and we're usually getting hit recently. Valor 50 and Warbanner down, and we just basically slap Q down constantly. We're in Blood Stance, and Sand Stance would get us to 8.5 mil and would put us over a 206k effective hit pool. So when you're not fighting a boss, then you're basically running through the entire endgame at 200k effective hit pool. And then basically nothing else ticked in here. We have Brittle, this comes from our boots, and our melee distance is 1 to the enemy, no other modifiers, and Guardian and Pinnacle boss damage. Okay, so talking through gearing. Now, in my POB, I've put a Devoto's Devotion. It's just a good sub-out helm. It works really well for the build, and it compensates well for the fact that this helm doesn't really exist in POB because I have 974 armor on my helm, and General's helmets don't exist as a base type yet in the program. However, basically, I've just got Chaos Resistance, bit of Fire Res, ton of HP, and an absolute ton of armor on this. The implicits are going to change, so I'm probably going to convert this as I go, but I'm not quite there yet. Now, 4th Vow is pretty much the go-to chest. I actually just 5-linked my own 4th Vow, and to get a 4th Vow is pretty cheap anyway. So, actually, correction, a 5-link 4th Vow right now is like 2 div, right? 1 to 2 div. I got mine for a lot cheaper than that because I just farmed some chaos. It is going up in price. It is one of the most effective ways to get your defense scaled on your character. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So for my amulet, I switched to a replica at series foible. Reason being is this amulet's dirt cheap. It's like 10C, gives me a ton of life regeneration, gets me to about 1100 standing HP regeneration. If we have a look here, it's like 1034 and it goes up to like, 1100 really easily. And I've got infused flesh, and in combination with my rings, this is giving me just shy of like 40% return, or actually is that 30%, 41% damage recouped as life. So 41% of the damage I take is recouped as life in my pool, which is really effective for this build right now. Now, Replica Dream Feather, I've got a corrupted implicit with 10% chance to fortify. This gives me a technical 7 link once I get my my 7 link set up. So fortify gives me a huge buff to defense, especially for being a delver. Shield, no change. Emperor's Vigilance, best in socket. Rings, chaos, resistance, damage taken, recouped, huge amount of life, and elemental resistances. That's the same standpoint for both rings, except this one's a little worse. My Tanuahi, I have corrupted Tanuahi with 8% increased attack speed, so I got 18% increased attack speed from a Tanuahi now. My belt, I switched out the magnate. It just wasn't doing the job. So I picked up this belt here. It basically gives me all the resistances I need and a ton of armor and implicit physical damage as well. So gives me the best of all worlds. You could sub this out for a leather belt as well if you want to increase your health pool, which will increase your EHP. Boots, same boots, drops brittle, 0.2% life regeneration per endurance charge. We could probably change that and get a better roll. But right now, this is doing the job, and I just got these from shipping. Now, flasks, I've optimized a bit better. So I have a life flask. Eventually, we'll switch that to Progenesis if we push it that far. I have an amethyst flask with charges when full. Charges used when full, and I generate charges when I'm hit by the enemy. I also have additional elemental resistances. Ideally, we want additional attack speed, but right now I need those elemental resistances to cap out my alley. So I also have a diamond flask. This gives me increased crit, and I gain charges when I crit, and I always crit. I'm on like 94.11% right now, which is pretty good. I have a Lion's Roar. This gives pushbacks really good in Delve. It's also really good for keeping enemies away from you as a defensive strat, but it also gives me a ton of armor and a ton of offense as well. And Taste of Hate does a fair bit of gives us a fair bit of defensiveness. So 24% of fire and lightning damage from hits is taken as cold damage during effect. This is giving us max cold resist and overcapping us, and then that's also reconverting back through our fourth vow setup. This also gives us chilled avoidance of chill and freeze, but we're also running unstoppable. So, do the math there. Works really well irrespectively though. So this is my current setup of my gear. Okay, so gem setups. I haven't really changed too much. Still precision, arrogance, war banner, and vitality in my helm. In my weapon, it's Assassin's Mark, Herald of Purity, and Mark on hit. If you need more defense for pushing down, switch out Herald of Purity for it'll drop your DPS by about a mil. But if you switch it for Arctic Armor, it's going to make you significantly tankier if you're delving. And then Determination, Flesh and Stone, and Blood and Sand in my shield. In my chest right now, I've got Shield Crush, Impale, Pulverize, Brutality, and Multi-Strike. And then eventually we'll switch in and add melee physical damage once we 6-link this. In my gloves, Blood Rage, Automation, Phase Run, and Molten Shell. And then in my boots, I've got Seismic Cry, Urgent Orders, Life Tap, and Leap Slam. Okay, so the tree hasn't really changed very much. The big changes here were removing the nodes down here and basically adding Inglorious Vanity with a Zabiqua roll on it, and this gives us Divine Flesh. So now we get Divine Flesh, which is where a lot of our defensive stats are coming from. And then basically we come down. We don't really need to make any changes here. It's all the same. And I did pad out my large cluster here. I do need to get a better large cluster, which is going to probably put me at like say 13 or 14 mil at this stage with Nature's Patience. And I also have a pretty decent node here with crit multi, attack speed, and life. So it's pretty good jewel that I had dropped in shipping. And then basically, yeah, the rest of it is all exactly the same. We have Seething Fury, and yeah, no other real major changes. Sentencies are all the same as well. And we no longer need Unbreakable because we have our chest armor, which gives us a better effect than the 15% conversion. So this would be a loss to run this node at this stage. Okay, so where this guide's at right now is I won't update this for a few days so I can go up and farm and get this character up to par. Probably by the weekend I'll have it ready for like a proper full like build unveiling. And then I'll do like the moderate end game on the weekend, and then like a super min max later on if I push it that far. But as it is right now, this is doing pretty much everything in the end game on just a 5 link. Once I gear this up, this will just one hit everything in maps at T16. Very likely that a little more gearing, this will be able to take T17s, and it should be able to farm end game bosses without any major issues or anything like that. So the build is very much online and working exceptionally well considering we're day 4 in. And yeah, overall, just a really comfortable and cruisy build to play now. In Delve, we'll probably be able to push down to about 500 depth, and I should be able to take Crystal Kings at about 450 to 550 currently with the current configuration. But once we gear this up even better, we should be able to take them down probably as far as 700 to 800. And I reckon this build can make it to 1000 depth and delve without too many issues, with a bit better gearing and a bit more investment. Anyway, if you like this video, don't forget to like and sub to the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Twitch while we're farming, when we're farming Delve, and hopefully we get a Pride All's Uprising drop, and I will show you just how much damage that will give this build. Unfortunately, its price is so expensive that farming it is going to pretty much be the best option you can take. We're trying to get it for your build, so you just got to stay persistent and go after it in the Delve depths. But I'll see you guys a little bit later on.